Hello, everyone. Today, I'm doing part 5 of the series, How Do I Choose the Right Interior Journey Resources for Me? Okay, so it's been a bit of a delay before doing part 5 because I've fallen ill and you may or may not be able to tell the difference in my voice. I'm not fully recovered yet. So I'll be taking it a little bit slower today. If you notice my energy levels being lower than usual, this is why. And I'm also not doing this part 5 live so that I can have some pauses if I need to rest in between doing this presentation, or in the midst of doing this presentation, okay? So, part 5. So we're going to be talking about creating your own personal suite of resources, and at the end, a little bit about the clarity coaching journey that I am opening applications for very soon. So just to recap what part 1 to 4 in the series have covered, I talked about 3 common mistakes of the interior journey and about why making space for the journey itself is such an important and overlooked even resource, or a skill that we need to pick up on. And I then, in part 3, talked about how can you tell if the resources that you have in your life or the practices or activities that you're involved in, whether or not they actually help the interior journey, right? It may help other aspects of your life and humanity, but they may not be actually contributing to the interior journey growth. And then in part 4, I told you the difference between root versus canopy kind of resources. So the interior journey has different stages, and it's important to do first things first, always. I explained what the difference is between what I call root resources and what are kind of like higher level post-beginning kind of work, interior work. And all the praxis exercises I've given in part 1 to 4 is meant to help you consolidate and, digest what I share. So I highly encourage that you do that. Okay, do the praxis exercises that I suggest at the end of each part that I've talked about in this series. Okay, so today, let's move on to today. Today, we're going to be talking about creating your personal suite of resources to support your interior journey. And to go further into that, I will discuss a little the difference between one-to-one kinds of resources and group resources, as well as resources that meet you wherever you are, that kind of free flow, there's no fixed beginning or end, versus resources that have some kind of, a curriculum, okay, a system that you need to step through. And then I will wrap up at the very end by talking a little bit about clarity and locating clarity in the midst of everything that I've talked about in all these sessions so far, so you get a sense of, how clarity fits into possible interior journey resources for you. So what do I mean by a suite of resources? A suite is like a collection, right? A collection that's not just haphazard. It's kind of a collection that fits together for some, in a particular way, it's coherent. So when I say a suite of resources that will support you in your interior journey, I'm talking about different kinds of resources. It could be different kinds, but they work together, okay? They work together to support where you presently are in your interior journey. So at any point in our interior journey, I think it's ideal if we have a kind of suite. There's no fixed, there's no fixed number of resources that you need to have, but the idea is more than one, and they can change with the seasons and change with the stage, but at all times, you're supported from different directions, okay, by different kinds of resources. That's what I mean by a suite of resources. So your suite of resources will be different from anybody else's suite of resources, because the whole point is this is personal. Okay, you're unique, your needs are unique, and as you go deeper in your interior journey, you'll find that the specific things that you need to work on is different from other people. There may be some similarities and overlaps, but it's going to be unique for you. So this is why what I share so much in this series as well, this is actually a life skill that if you learn and you learn to practice, you're going to be so equipped to accompany yourself, you know, in a way that's more intentional and strategic, that will give you a lot more support than if you didn't know that there were these possible ways to support yourself. So cultivating or creating your own suite of resources is one of these skills, okay? So your suite of resources will address your unique interior space, right? They will work together. They're meant to be complementary, okay? Your suite of resources would not be made up of resources that contradict each other or are redundant, right? So we want to be essentialist, not do more than we have to, but at the same time, we want it to be effective. And your suite of resources will be appropriate for your stage and your season of growth. And so it makes sense that over time, things will change. Your resources will change. Your suite may look a little different. Even if in some certain categories, they may be similar, okay? And we will go into that a little very soon. But the depth of the resources, or, you know, the specific topic of the resources, those things may change as you grow. They should change as you grow. So your suite of resources could include, okay, this is not an exhaustive list, but you know, it could include like published content that you can access, you can buy or borrow, okay, or listen and watch for free. For example, books and podcasts and videos and social media. And if you've been following me, you know that I put a lot of content out in podcasts and videos and social media precisely to contribute to, you know, what's available out there for people who may need to pick up on resources that fit where they are. Okay, so there's published content. There could be professional services that you pay for, like, you know, a therapist, a coach. Maybe you go to, you know, your spiritual director, for example, people who are trained in particular areas to support the interior journey. And then there could be programs that you sign for, courses, workshops. They could be short. They could be like a one-day thing. They're a few days long, a few weeks long, a few months long, a few years long. I know of people who enroll in even higher education, like, you know, a master's in spirituality, you know, for example, or go for training in spiritual direction, partly for their own formation, right? Not just so much that it's not just so that they can have a skill with which to help others, but so that they can also deepen their own journey. So that's another kind of resource that you might have in your suite. And then there are support groups or communities, both formal and informal people, basically, okay? So formal communities could be a community that you officially belong to, some kind of membership or support group, or it could be just some good friends who are also on this interior journey with you, whom you know you can share deeply and who are wise and emotionally and spiritually mature. And maybe you meet them quite regularly to share about your journey. That would be an example of an informal community. Okay? So one important distinction to make before we go further is that interior journey resources, they are not the same as the interior work. Okay, they're not the same as the work. They are not the work. I want to emphasize this because sometimes it's easy for us to get caught up with, okay, I'm going to read this book, I'm going to, you know, do this workshop, I'm going to go for this course, and then we may think that that's the work. That's actually not the work. It's a very, very small part of it, perhaps. These are resources, but they're meant to prime you and support you to then do the work. The actual work happens in your regular life, in your daily life, right? It happens in your one-on-one time with yourself, in your prayer time, in your journaling time, in the times when you are grounding yourself after being dysregulated, for example. It happens, it is woven into the fabric of your life. It could happen informally or formally. I know, a friend of mine who is a mother of young children. She tried and clearly finds it very difficult to have a normal or regular kind of quiet time. But she said to me that these days when she drives, because she's the one that picks up the children, sends them, or sometimes sends her husband to work. It's when she's in the car alone, those are the times that she has to consolidate and pray, talk to God, chew cud, as she would say. She likes to use the analogy like she's, how a cow chews cud. That's when she goes through what she's been listening to. She listens to podcasts, the things that she reads. When we are ready for something, when we're ready for the interior journey and we're ready to delve deeper, we will always find time for it, even if it's not orthodox in the way that we understand how the interior journey is meant to be made. So just remember, the resources are not the work, okay? So when we're talking about putting together a suite of resources, this is what's going to support you in this season for the way that you can do your interior work, all right? So your actual interior work takes place in your day-to-day living. It is your practice, okay? It is in your practice. So the question to ask when you're putting together your suite of resources would be, which resources collectively support my daily practice of interior work best at this time? Okay, what works for me depending on the state of life I'm in, the stage of life I'm in, season of life I'm in, all of that. Okay, so what would work for a mother of young children, a working mother of young children, for example, would be very different from someone who is single and taking care of maybe an aged parent, right? Different from someone who is a busy professional, whose calling is very much in the marketplace, versus maybe someone who's in religious life, right? So and then different times of your life as well. So all that has to go into your consideration when you're thinking about what works for you now. So now let's talk about balancing your suite, right? If you have several resources, remember I said that they shouldn't be redundant, right? They should support you from different directions. So that's why balancing your suite is important. So let's talk a little bit about one-to-one individual support versus group support, and free flow versus curriculum or structured support, all right? I'm pretty confident that you probably wouldn't have heard this talked about before. I've never heard this kind of broken down this way before. So I'm excited to share this with you, and I hope that you will find it helpful. So one-to-one, by one-to-one, I mean, private one. I actually mean more private one-to-one, okay? So because one-on-one support, you can be supported individually even if it's not in private per se, but I'm talking more of like private one-on-one support and particularly, I guess, live one-to-one support, all right? Versus group, generally like, when you're supported as a group or as part of a group. So when you're talking about one-to-one support, there's individual attention, which we all need, okay? This is so crucial. Because when you're seeing a therapist, for example, individual therapy, or a spiritual director or a coach on one-on-one sessions, their attention is on you and only on you. And for that time that you have together, it's talking about what you need. There's a great deal of flexibility also because it's one-on-one, right? And it can be customized. There's a lot of customization that's possible. I think this is an important part of our interior journey resource. The further we go, the more we do need to avail ourselves to customized, flexible, individualized attention to our journey. Okay, that's the strength of one-to-one support. But on the other hand, we also benefit from an environment where we learn from our peers. Okay, now it touches on different things, right? I have my individual customized support, but I also need an environment where there are others on the journey and I benefit from hearing about other people's journey. Just the energy, the collective energy that comes, realizing that I'm not alone on this journey. So there's peer learning and support. There's a sense of solidarity and community, okay? So that's the strength of group kind of containers. very often you can't have the strength of both the one-on-one and the group equally deeply supported in the same resource. Okay, they're often different resources. So that's something to bear in mind. The other distinction is between free flow versus curriculum or structured support. Okay, so free flow tends to be, like I said, there's no fixed structure or beginning or end. It's a lot looser. It can be a lot longer term, right? Because there may not even be a fixed frequency. It's quite free flow. For example, when you see a therapist or a spiritual director, the frequency with which you see them can change depending on what's going on in your life. When we begin, we tend to be a bit more frequent, and then as things stabilize, you can see them a little less frequently. Then when you're in a challenging time of your life where there are some huge changes, we go back to seeing them more frequently, for example. It's ongoing. So free flow, okay, so free flow kind of thing can be ongoing, responsive, and to changing needs. Now, free flow kinds of resources are not necessarily just individual. The idea is that they are ongoing, they are flexible, and they're more adaptive to changing needs. On the other hand, a curriculum or structured kind of resource, they have a clear start and end. They have usually they're a lot more clearer, more specific in terms of the learning objectives of that resource, okay? And these resources aim to make deeper specific impact on a particular point of your interior journey, right? So that's kind of like the strength of curriculum or structured kind of resource. I want to say again, do note that they both have strengths, and each one's strength is kind of the other's weakness, which is why we need both throughout the longer journey, okay? We need something free flow to meet us where we're at in digesting what we're learning. But at certain times, if you really want to make progress, you feel that it's time to learn more deeply about something, then something that's structured with curriculum and well-designed can really bring us to like a much greater depth in the journey than we would be able to do without it. Okay, so I'm sharing on my screen here a little table. So this is where, if you're listening to this on the podcast, I encourage you to find time to click on the link to the YouTube video, and so they have the visual, okay? So what I have now here on my screen is a table. There are 4 squares, okay? And you will see it's so that you can see how they all fit, okay? So on the left, so I'll start with the top left corner. This is an example. These are examples of resources that are one-to-one and free flow. So an example of one-to-one and free flow would be like spiritual direction, therapy, coaching, or individual retreats, like individual silent retreats where really it's just you, no agenda, apart from meeting with your spiritual director that meets you one-on-one. Okay. Let's just talk about it. So this individual first. Okay, it's one-to-one, free flow, and then on the right hand, on its right, you see one-to-one and curriculum. So one-to-one and structured, okay, and curriculum based. An example up there I put there is the spiritual exercises of Saint Ignatius, okay, which I think is one of really classic and brilliant examples. It's more than 500 years old now. It's withstood the test of time, right? There is a very clear structure and curriculum to the spiritual exercises of Saint Ignatius, and a brilliant one, I must say. The benefits or the strengths of well-designed curriculums is that it leads you deeper than you would otherwise be able to go if not for that structure. They're like kind of like a ladder. They're like steps, okay? They lead you somewhere. All right, so spiritual exercises of Saint Ignatius is an example of a one-to-one individual, but structured curriculum and structured kind of a resource. Or that could be topic-based kind of maybe coaching or therapy or retreat sometimes that you might sign up for, attend, right? That's different from the free flow kind. They're working on a particular area. For example, like boundaries. Let's say you might attend, your therapist may say, okay, you know what, there are a few sessions. Let's do a few sessions just structured on boundaries, and there's a certain structure to this next few sessions, and that would be an example of one-to-one curriculum. On the lower level, of the table here on the left, you have group and free flow. So while not so common, sometimes there are people who go for kind of like group spiritual direction. You have a spiritual director who may be facilitating the conversation, for example. There's group therapy. Or, of course, then there could be your communities and your support groups, right? So that's group and free flow. Usually, there's no clear start or clear end to the group container, right? It's there to support your ongoing journey. And then to its right, you have group and curriculum or structured based. So that's where you will find like workshops and courses, group retreats perhaps that have a particular structure. Maybe, it's like a themed kind of retreat, for example, right? Or group coaching. Okay, then you will see a group container, and there may be a clear start and a clear end with a particular curriculum. So I just want to say that amidst all of this, in my opinion, the mainstay really that you should always have available in your life, close to you, would be the one-to-one and free flow. Okay, so that would be the top left square there, okay? So, sorry, let's go back. So the mainstay is one-to-one and free flow, because I think that individual attention, flexibility, and customization to you, is often what is needed when we need to go a little deeper in our interior work. So let's say you also attending a course, or you're going through some other formation, and that's really helpful, and that stirs things up in you. And as you're trying to make more sense of it, you need to digest it further. So the mileage of any resource really depends on ability in our inner work to kind of like chew on it, digest it, and let it nourish us, right? In this process, these one-to-one and free flow kinds of support, like spiritual direction and therapy, they help us do that inner work more, you could say, like kind of get more out of it, or help us get unstuck where we may meet certain points where we get stuck, all right? This is the place, these kind of resource is the place where we get that kind of support. A lot of times this deep support would not be available in like a class or a workshop, or even in a retreat. You go for a retreat, for example, things happen, and then afterwards you continue to deepen what has started in the retreat. You don't go back to look for your retreat director. You bring it to your spiritual director or your therapist in your daily life, and that's how you continue to deepen what you have started at in the retreat or anywhere else. Okay, and the fact that this can be longer term and ongoing means that it's kind of like it's there when you need it more frequently, when you can get it more frequently, when you need it more frequently, ideally. Okay, so that's the idea. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to just give you the praxis for this part before I move on to talk about clarity. All right, and you can screenshot here so that you can duplicate this simple table. They're just 4 squares, right? I'm going to ask you to draw this table out somewhere, okay? Because you're going to be filling out that table. So draw this table out. Make sure you use a large enough space to do so. And then list down all the resources that you have availed yourself up to this point in your interior journey. Okay, so all the different resources, maybe the significant retreats, workshops, courses, I don't know what formation, whatever formation sessions or that you have done. Remember that we're talking about interior journey resources. Okay, so like part 3 in this series helps you identify whether they're helpful for your interior journey or not. So at this point, you should already know not to include formation that doesn't address the interior dimension of your journey. Okay, so we're talking only about interior journey resources, but list all of them out and then try and fit them into that table now. Okay, you're going to sort them out. Are they, like, you take one out, let's say this particular retreat that you attended 2 years ago or 3 years ago, whatever it is it one-to-one or is it group? And then is it free flow or is it curriculum and structured? Okay, so you put them in one of these boxes, and you do that for the list of resources that you have put down. If you have a really, really long list, then I'll suggest that maybe look at, maybe the last few years. Okay, use the resource in the last few years. The idea is once you've moved them into one of these 4 boxes, I invite you to take a look at your table. How balanced or imbalanced is the distribution? Do you have something in every box? Is there a particular box that is a lot more crowded than all the other boxes? Do you see redundancy maybe? Have you been going for the same kind of resources over and over again? And is there a box that is completely empty? Right? Is there a box in the table that's completely empty? That will show you where your gaps are. Okay. All right, so that's for Praxis. Now I'm going to talk a bit about clarity, okay? So there is already a website or web page up on my website, which you can go to. And if you're already interested in this, you probably have already read about it. I'm not going to repeat too many things from there because you can find out all that information. But this part is taken from the website because I think it summarizes, in a sense, what this resource, okay, my Clarity Interior Integration Journey, what it's meant to do for you. If you are the right fit for it, it's meant to empower you. Remember, I say that all the stuff I do is meant to equip you, not handhold you. So, really, I work best with people who are ready to be a little bit more independent in picking up and equipping themselves, all right? So it's meant to empower you to learn how to listen to your life and attune to your inner self. Listen to your life and attune to your inner self to see things that you haven't seen before about yourself, really, okay? Particularly in specific, concrete, and data-driven ways. The instruments I use the motivation code and the Myers-Briggs step 2. Okay, step 2 Myers-Briggs actually goes into a lot more specific detail than the usual step 1, which is what people are familiar with. I use these instruments. I'm certified to use them. I'm licensed to use them. Okay, but I use them in a way that's spirit-led. So I integrate these instruments with all the things that you always hear me talk about. Okay. Attuning to yourself, attuning to God. We also look at our scripts, the scripts and the programming that we are so used to, even before we look at the design that God may have given us, okay, when we go through this. So it's a journey, it's step by step. That's why there's a curriculum and it's structured, okay? But it's meant to help you reach new levels or new depths and specificity of knowing yourself, and helping you to move towards self-acceptance and notice where you struggle to accept what you're finding about yourself. And ultimately, this is a foundation, okay, that's meant to be laid so that as you move on in life beyond clarity, you have better understanding and more empathy as to why you work the way you work, or you are the way you are, and you understand that it's part of your uniqueness. And where you can't accept yourself, you can look at the scripts that you have in your life based on maybe from your hurts and traumas, and also have a sense of understanding, oh, okay, this is why I struggle. It is an area that I struggle because I am aware that this is my script. All right? So it's meant to give you some more data points, concrete data points, okay? And importantly, in the company of fellow pilgrims, ready to engage at a similar depth as you. So clarity, for the first time, really, this year, it will be a group container, because I've seen how this part is really important. I've always known it was important, but I wanted to hone my curriculum first, and also over the years and all the clients that I've worked with, really focus in and learn, what are the strengths and weaknesses of not just the program, but who are the people that I'm most equipped to help in what stage of the journey, for example, right? So that's why I can speak to this now with this degree of clarity and confidence. What I have found that was helpful and tested a bit in the last cohort is that when you bring people who are ready to engage at a similar depth and who most of them are feeling very alone because they don't really know anyone else in their immediate circle who are doing this work that they are doing. So they may have their own communities, their friends, their family, even faith communities or cell groups, for example, but they can feel very alone because an interior journey has many seasons and many stages, and sometimes they're the first one to journey this far or to start taking interest in the integration aspect of the interior journey, right? And so they're alone. And I keep hearing these amazing things from different individuals who feel alone. And I always feel, oh, if only this other client of mine can benefit from hearing what you've learned or what, your insight, right? And I've also found from my checking in with my clients that that's something that a lot of them would enjoy. But that would mean that I would need to help curate a community or a small community. This will be a small community because I want to be able to give my time and attention. So even though there will not be as built into this container one-on-one live sessions with me, you can bet I am paying individual attention to each person in the group, right? In my time, even when I'm not with you, reading your responses, praying about responding, answering questions. So there will be one-to-one support, even if it's not private. It's a small group, so that we can all benefit from that exchange. All right. So that's how clarity is kind of like meant to do. Okay. Help you to get unprecedented clarity about yourself, your scripts, and your design, so that you can understand yourself better and practice attuning to yourself as you learn about yourself, and in the presence, in the company, right, of a curated, intentional pilgrim community ready to engage at a similar depth as you. That's so hard to find. That is so hard to find. I know I speak from my own personal experience, right? So the main features of clarity would be, this is all online, okay? The main features would be webinars every 2 weeks. And this will happen on Saturday morning Singapore time, which would be probably Friday evening for some people if there's anyone interested, because quite a few of my listeners and followers are from the United States or North America. Okay, so but the webinars will be once every 2 weeks on Saturday morning Singapore time. Once a month, there will be office hours. I will also provide 2 different timings of office hours. They're going to be about 90 minutes each, okay, which people can sign up for. So you can RSVP for a little further discussion, coaching, or Q&A beyond the webinar. So the webinars will be kind of like mostly input, Q&A, maybe some praxis sessions, okay, some in-session praxis. Then you have the webinars, you have the office hours, and you have the small curated community where we will have a private community forum that is on my learning platform itself that's signed in. So it is completely private. It's not on Facebook, so that your engagement in this will be mindful and intentional. All right. And that's exactly the intent. Everything about clarity is thought about, pondered, intentional, mindful. Okay, it's not meant to just distract you or be very noisy. So a lot of thought is being put into crafting and curating that experience, that community experience. So this will be, the involvement or the engagement in the community will also include things like praxis exercises that you do in your week, when we're not, maybe in the weeks that we're not meeting or in between the sessions that we have. And then you can do those exercises, those reflections or praxis exercises, and you get an opportunity to share on the forum your responses to those exercises. And that's the part where we can support one another and experience solidarity while engaging at a time of your convenience when you're ready. Okay, so there's going to be a lot less of having to say something before you're ready, for example. No, mindful engagement means I want to invite, the community to respond with mindfulness and attention. And then, of course, like I said, there are interior integration exercises and reflection prompts, that will be part of this, that will happen for your own engagement as part of the journey, all right? So if I fit what I've just described about clarity into the table I've shown earlier, this is where you'll see them fit, okay? The webinars, which is the mainstay, really the main part that will carry the curriculum, okay, and the work that we need to do together, will be group and curriculum, right? You'll see the curated community engagement and office hours. There will be group and free flow, because really that's, it's not so rigid. There's a bit of a curriculum, but at the same time, it's organic, okay? So there's a bit of free flow there. And it also, because the time that you will take to do your own reflection and praxis that has been curated and designed for you to do, that would fit under one-on-one to curriculum. So clarity kind of like touches on 3 of the 4 boxes, okay? And the one box that it doesn't touch is the mainstay that I have told you. What I've told you, but I think is the mainstay. The one box it doesn't touch is the one-to-one and free flow. There is no individual free flow coaching, or even individual curriculum-based coaching in clarity. Okay, and that is why I will highly encourage that the people, that if you're considering doing clarity, if you don't yet have that one-to-one and free flow resource available to you, if you haven't been doing that for a while, that's what I would actually invite you to put in place first. If, on the other hand, you already have been going for spiritual direction or therapy, or you have these resources available, then you could be in a good place to consider doing clarity. The reason being, in all the times I've done clarity, I've noticed that the clients that get the most out of it are those who have their spiritual director or therapist alongside them, okay? They may not be talking explicitly about what we're doing in clarity, but going through clarity itself is it's interior work, and it's deep interior work. It's going to stir things up. It's going to bring you in touch sometimes with insecurities that you weren't that aware of, or new things that you didn't know you felt, for example. Within the clarity container itself, there isn't built-in space. It's not that kind of resource for you to, on your own time, digest, because everyone is different, and some people will have no issue with one thing, whereas somebody else would need a lot more support and maybe connecting with themselves over the same topic. Okay, so that's where having your own individual support on the side is going to really help you get the most out of clarity. So clarity, who is it suitable for? Who is it ideal for? It's really going to be, good for people who have been doing root work. Remember, the foundational work for some time, and if you've been doing that for some time and you are ready to go deeper and get more specific, it's not just the foundation that you're building now. You want to know, so what makes you unique, for example? What makes you different from everybody else, right? You're in touch with your wounds, you're getting better attuned to yourself, but what makes you tick? Kind of like getting better acquainted with yourself, not just in your wounds, but the way that you were built, the way that you're designed, right? Getting to know someone and love someone, that's a big part of it. Okay, so then that's where clarity can help, okay? Getting to know yourself more concretely and authentically. It's also suitable for those, suitable for those who have already the regular basic one-to-one support in place and ready to build on that. It will be suitable for those who can make space, know how to make space, and can make space for prioritizing, 8 months this year of more intentional and purposeful engagement and praxis. All right. So the design of clarity is already mindful of everyone being very cramped and busy. And that's why the webinars are once every 2 weeks and not every week. Okay. I'm very mindful to try and space things out while keeping people still engaged. So it will be 8 months of deeper engagement than usual, of intentional practice and being a part of an intentional practice community or community of practice, okay? But if this is, the right thing for you, I'd imagine that you'll be pretty excited about doing so. It's also suitable for those who enjoy working independently, okay, while receiving and contributing mindfully to a small community of pilgrims online. So a lot of this is actually work with yourself. The person that you engage with the most is with yourself and with God, is with you and with God. Okay, a lot of the exercises will be in that kind of frame, praying the layers, connecting with your inner self and with God. So it's independent work, but at the same time, it's a fellowship, right? Where we honor each other's solitude, the depth work, and then when we do that work and when we engage and we share what is coming out of the engagement. So you have to be willing to also share, in a safe way, right? But share, part of what this journey is doing for you, because that's the other big part of how you're going to learn. You see how things work through repeatedly seeing how it works for other people as well, right? Because practice makes perfect. And then it helps us to understand with these things, not just ourselves, but, the differences and diversity within the group, right? So if that makes you excited, then it could be for you. If what you want is really just individual work, and I understand that, there are aspects and dimensions where we really just want to do the individual work, then maybe not so much for you, okay? So if all this sounds great for you, then the application process for clarity, the first part is really watch the series, all 5 parts of the series, and do the praxis, okay? Because clarity is, it's not really just for beginner kind of work. There are a lot of other materials and resources out there that will be better suited for people who I think are at earlier stages, perhaps of the journey, or maybe need certain things to be put in place first. And really, so it's important that you watch all 5 parts of the series and do the praxis to better locate yourself. I'm confident that those people who are ideal, ready for something like clarity will know just by going through these 5 videos and doing the praxis, who have a sense that, yes, you want to take the next step. And the next step would be to fill in a Google form application, which is not available yet at this time of making this video, but I will make it available on my website soon. All right. And you'll be notified if you are already subscribed to my newsletter or you follow me on social media. I will try and announce that it's open, wherever I can. But there will be a Google form, application. And I encourage you to sign into your own account, your own Google account, or create one if you don't have one. Sign in with your email, basically, so that you can save the progress of your application. If you don't finish it in one sitting, just, you can save it and come back to it. All right, so that it'll be that. Watch the series, fill out that form, which I will make as straightforward as possible. So it will be easy for you to fill out that form if you've done the praxis from the series of videos beforehand. And when you've sent in your application, I will read your application personally, of course, and then I will respond to you to either suggest something else if I feel, based on your hopefully very informative application, that is a better next step for you. So this is a discernment, and it's actually, it's a service that I'm providing really for free, if you apply, in a sense, to direct you to what may be better suited for you, or if what I see in the application form sounds like you're a good fit, I will get in touch with you about the next step, about the next step that we can do to move towards further discerning and confirming, and maybe enrolling into clarity, if that is indeed what is the best thing for you and the right fit for you. All right, so that's what, so my event, I will be putting up a webpage on my website with the playlist of all 5 of these videos, as well as a link to the form, okay, when it's ready. So thank you so much for watching this series. I hope that it's been helpful to you, regardless of whether you were thinking of applying for clarity or not. And I would love to hear feedback on how this series may have helped you in your interior journey. So write me an email or, drop me a direct message in Instagram. That's where I hang out more, actually, where I'm a bit more responsive. Okay, and thank you. Thank you for your interest in what I have to say. And I wish you Godspeed.